Three, two, 1, 0.
Welcome to the Heart of Innovation. 60 minutes that could save life and limb, with new breakthrough ideas and innovation changing the healthcare landscape. Brought to you by patient advocacy group thewaytomyheart.org in partnership with Abbott. Here are your hosts for the Heart of Innovation, Emmy Award-winning journalist and founder of The Way to My Heart, Kim McNicholas, and interventional cardiologist and founder of the Save My Piggies Health Education Series, Dr. John Phillips.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. So, low testosterone levels have been linked to various cardiac risk factors, although that doesn't prove that low levels actually cause heart disease. However, evidence does show that men with cardiovascular disease and vascular disease, such as peripheral artery disease, which is those blocked arteries in mainly the legs, tend to have low testosterone, and that testosterone therapy may help with that and maybe not be so bad for the heart at the same time. Today, we are going to talk to our co-host, Dr. John Phillips. We're putting him on the hot seat today about the role of testosterone in men at risk of and with cardiovascular disease. Now, that's not the only topic, but it is a very important topic that comes up all the time with patients who we work with the Global PAD Association, and it's really important. And I discovered that recently Dr. John Phillips just sunk his time, his energy, and investment into a local clinic for a men's health chain called Game Day. And they help men with alternative therapies to improve testosterone levels and so many other men-specific issues. And so we're going to talk to him about that in a few moments. But as you know, we get to the topic a little bit later on after, of course, we say hello. We talk about our week. It's been a long one. Right, Dr. Phillips? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome to you, Kim. I know this has been a long week for you, and perhaps maybe you can share with the listeners at some point what has all transpired. I will tell you that I have to give a shout out to my friends at the University of Pennsylvania. I was at their what's called PALP, P-A-L-P conference, which is the Philadelphia Advanced Limb Preservation Conference, mainly hosted by vascular surgeons, which is awesome because they do a lot of great work over their critical limb ischemia, complex endovascular intervention, as well as surgical intervention. So I was able to speak, and then I also helped out with the fellows course at sponsored by Boston Scientific. Pardon me?
Was Dr. Genovese there?
She was, yeah. I met Liz for the first time. We sat on panel together. Great, fantastic surgeon and advocate for patient care. She is very good at, I think she has her finger on the pulse, I think, of like the socioeconomic disparities that occur within PAD. So had a great time. And I was only in Philly for like 24 hours or a little bit longer. Fantastic city as well.
Yeah, you had a busy week. I mean, I don't know how, and I know so many amazing CLI fighters such as yourselves. You have to balance so much of not only with family, but then you have your regular work schedule, even an on-call schedule, so you can save piggies and also lives in your own area. But then on top of that, in order to help further the education of others, because still, more than 80%, 90% of physicians out there are not trained in advanced vascular tools and techniques. This is an ever-growing, ever-improving area of medicine when it comes to the treatment of peripheral artery disease and trying to save the legs. And so I don't know how you do it at all. I mean, you were seriously saving piggies and getting on a flight, then getting into Philadelphia, and then spending time trying to educate others. I mean, how do you mentally prepare yourself or help yourself physically to handle all of these demands?
I appreciate your concern for me, but it's not as bad as it sounds, honestly. Like, we can work is work. You take care of patients, do what you need to do. running on the treadmill, you just increase the incline and the speed a little bit, and then you kind of decrease the incline and decrease the speed when things slow down, and you just adapt to it. What I thought was interesting when COVID hit, we all kind of just went from 100 miles an hour to nothing, and I think that I could adjust to nothing, but nothing wasn't bad, honestly, and I still think that people have realized that a lot of the conferences that we go to, the material that's presented, honestly, in my opinion, is been rinsed and recycled, wash, rinse, and repeat many times over. There's a little bit of new technology here and there, but a lot of it is networking and interacting with industry and knowing, trying to understand what might be new. So that's kind of fun. And plus, you get to meet folks that you haven't seen in a little bit. So there's that sense of camaraderie. But at the end of the day, you always pick up a couple nuggets that help get you better as a physician and an interventionalist. So very thankful for the opportunity from Help. So thank you.
Well, I'm thinking you might also partake in some of your own treatments over there at game day to help you with some of the maybe intravenous nutrient injections and things like that. We're going to get into a little later on in the show as well, that keeps you on your feet, keeps you going. Yeah, I bet you have partaken in some of that. But it's been a crazy week for us as well. We had a patient on an ECMO machine this week that we had to get involved to help save their legs and save their arms, because when a patient is on an ECMO machine, they're at risk of a lot of clotting, which can end up, trashing their legs and even arms, get into the peripherals. And then on that, with that on top of being on vasopressors to raise the blood pressure, well, that's sacrificing the blood flow in the limbs as well to maximize blood flow to the heart and to other vital organs and the brain. And so it's really critical when you have a patient that's in ICU, that's on this ECMO machine and or on these vasopressors, that you do have someone that's monitoring the bloods, right, on a regular basis. And this was not happening due to shortage of staff. So the limbs were being compromised. The patient found us, and I was literally on the phone yesterday trying to get a hold of the doctor, who had no idea that the staff was not supporting his efforts in making sure that the bloods were being monitored. Thankfully, they are. I got word this morning that the patient is doing much better now. And that makes me so happy, because we had 4 patients in the last year that were on these young patients, African-American patients, on this ECMO machine, the artificial lung and vasopressors, that ended up losing all 4s, and one of them lost their life. So it's really serious if you have someone that's in the ICU, that you do end up making sure you understand the complications that can occur and make sure that the staff is doing everything to help mitigate that risk. So that was a lot. And so that was my week. That was like, ooh, and the week now with a positive note, right?
Leg health can indicate risk.
Yay.
Clear. Y'all clear.
Yay.
Wait, so you had there was somebody on ECMO that was not being monitored from a vascular standpoint?
Nope. No, I find they never are.
Where was this?
Oh my gosh. Well,
You probably can't say.
this was in the middle of nowhere. This was in Arkansas. So like middle of nowhere. But the thing is, I have found that in every single case that vascular is not brought in until they already are turning gangrenous, in every single case that came my way. I was sad the other 4 cases this year, they didn't find the Leg Saver hotline till they were already told amputation. And as you know,
So the patient's family got in touch with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just happened to see, because they ended up searching. They found one of our videos with a patient out of Boston, her mom, if you recall.
Yeah.
So they found that, called us and said,
Did she
"Can this
die?
happen to my family?"
Yeah.
No, she didn't die. She's still there.
Good.
She's actually doing okay. She's a little depressed, of course, as you can imagine.
Yeah. No, ECMO is not for the faint of heart. I mean, that's actually you're taking out the heart and the lungs, and so you are completely supporting that patient and removing the heart and the lungs for the most part. There's different types of it, but because of that, you have big tubes in people's arteries, and you have to at least in the one leg, you have to make sure you're getting flow going down the leg. And we're very, very cautious, monitoring people. But these folks are on death's doorstep. I mean, honestly, if you get put on ECMO, you are this close from dying. So that in and of itself is a huge feat.
And you have to like, and that's why I understood, and that's why in every other case I felt terrible. Normally what I do in those situations, like in the past
To
four in the ER,
theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today, we are putting our co-host here, Dr. John Phillips, on the spot. Prior to break, we went off on a little bit of a tangent, as we always do, going into a little bit of our week, heading into today's show, into our Saturday show. And we talked a little bit about John's travels this week, not only saving piggies, but then traveling from Columbus, Ohio into Philadelphia, working with whom I consider a powerhouse, one of my heroes, Dr. Liz Genovese from University of Pennsylvania, and training some fellows in advanced limb salvage tools and techniques. I also was sharing some information on a major case we had this week with a patient that was on an artificial, heart and lung machine, and they were at risk of losing their limbs and their arms. And we were able to step in at the Global PAD Association and help make sure that the patient's bloods were being monitored so that hopefully they do not lose their limbs. But most importantly, when you're on those machines, you don't want to lose your life. So legs come separate, secondarily to that. But, it's really important. Sometimes there are things that you can't control. You may end up with a virus or an infection that, you just can't control. But, the thing is, what can we do every day to really prepare our bodies and get ourselves into the best shape and condition possible, to be able to manage something like this, prevent, these serious conditions, and build up your immune system. And that's why I wanted to talk to Dr. Phillips today about an investment he made into a local men's clinic called, it's a chain, but he and a team of investors put a clinic, a men's health clinic with Game Day in Columbus, Ohio area, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we bought into the franchise Game Day Men's Health, which started originally as it's a men's health clinic out in Carlsbad, California. Evan Miller is the founder and CEO. Our business part, my wife Carolyn and I are part owners in another family, the Schembeckler family. It's interesting because he pitched me the idea, and I had a little trepidation about getting involved in testosterone replacement because as a cardiologist, I wasn't sure about what that risk might be for folks who are potentially at increased cardiovascular risk getting testosterone replacement. So I had to do a fair amount of my mind research and kind of get my arms around what testosterone replacement meant, and is there going to be an increased cardiovascular risk for patients? And so after I did my due diligence, felt pretty comfortable, got involved, and looking into it a little bit further, and ultimately we took the steps to start. We're the first clinic in Ohio. There are several now that have opened, and there are at least two. There are two other ones in Columbus from different ownership groups, but we all kind of pull the rope in the same direction. And really, in fact, I was just at a fire station today talking to some of the firefighters, and what I try to tell folks is, for me, this was an opportunity to be for people. Now it's called Men's Health Clinic, and obviously a lot of the replacing testosterone is mainly, but this might be changed, but mainly for men. But we also offer other services, so we treat women. But talking to the firefighters, who these are young guys for the most part, but some guys have been doing it for 30 plus years. They're also in high stress situations and poor sleep habits. And so my whole goal is to try to be proactive with people's health as opposed to reactive, in the sense that when we're opening up arteries in the heart and in the legs, I mean, the horse is kind of out of the barn in that scenario. We can, as we've talked many times on the show, we can suppress the progression of PAD to some degree, but once you have it, you have it. And you've mentioned this, I mentioned it. Having a PAD diagnosis is worse than having a cancer diagnosis for a lot of cancers. And so, if we can be proactive and help treat folks and maybe prevent this from happening, I think that would be just a huge win-win for everybody.
Right. And I love the fact that, here you are, you were on the defensive, you're sitting there, you're in clinic, you're in the cath lab, you're opening up these arteries. And these are patients that, have already progressed to a certain point. And at some point you had this aha moment where it was like, oh my gosh, what can I do to end up, as much as I love helping people where they're at, right? And, stalling the progression, preventing progression. What can I do to prevent people to even come see me? As much as I love all of you, I don't want to see you in my clinic or on my table. Not because I don't love you, it's because it's for your own good. And you taking the action, taking the steps to say, I got to do something about it. I got to find an organization. I got to invest in this men's health clinic.
Well, I think that being able to be on the offensive and really help people become the best version of who they are is great. Remember when we had Mark Cuban's brother, was Brian, right, on the show, and his favorite quote, and I'm paraphrasing it, was I think from his dad, and it's something along the lines of, "Today is the youngest you're ever going to be again." And so it's like the clock is ticking. So how do you get folks to really invest in themselves to be the best version of who they are? And it's not always replacing testosterone or vitamin supplements or weight loss or things like that, but it's just saying, okay, let's take a step back, and how can we get you to want to exercise and eat right and take good care of yourself, and maybe mitigate some risks that potentially could cause cardiovascular disease and also PAD in your future. And diabetes is one of them, right? And so how do we get folks to away from that pre-diabetic phase of their like healthcare journey to not even close? So that's the goal. I mean, yes, testosterone replacement is huge. As we get older, usually kind of late 20s and into the 30s, your numbers drop 2% each year. And with that, you can have symptoms that include energy, low energy, and decreased libido, and brain fog, poor sleeping habits, difficulty losing weight, difficulty maintaining muscle, all that stuff. And I think we're all getting a little bit smarter as it pertains to hormones and treating folks, supplementing them when appropriate to kind of help relieve those symptoms. I will tell you that the patients that we've treated, when they're low and you get them on appropriate therapy, they feel a lot better. I mean, it's as if a switch is turned on, and even some of the firefighters that we talk to that are on it say, "Hey, I'd never stop." I mean, and that's part of the issue too. Like, once you're on it for the most part, because your body isn't making any more. So again, it's just an opportunity to help folks, whether it's tea or vitamin weight loss. And then the other thing too, which we should touch on, is erectile dysfunction. That is an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people, but it's a real problem, particularly with people with increased cardiovascular risk or who have cardiovascular disease and peripheral arterial disease. And that can ruin marriages, relationships, and people can get pretty desperate. So that is something else that I think is important as well.
And I think that's why we also just launched today, we haven't announced it yet, is menwithpad.com, and it's a Facebook group that is going to be private. It's going to be for men only. It's something that you're getting involved with Dr. John Phillips in your own local game day in the Columbus area of Ohio. And so that's going to be a great place to have some private conversations, some tough conversations that you might not be able to have anywhere else. So hopefully you can get to menwithpad.com and get to that Facebook page and sign up and learn more. It's not completely put together yet. It's very, grassroots at the moment. But give us time, at least get in there, be at the ground floor and build it with us together. But we'll be right back right here on KDOW in the Heart of Innovation. Don't go away.
3 years ago.
Okay. Colin, can you kick off the next segment with Moment of Inspiration Stinger? I think that you're on mute, Colin. Colin. Oh, you said got it. Okay. I didn't check the chat. Just want to make sure. If anyone has questions for Dr. John as we go along, just raise your hand and we can get you in. Did I lose Dr. John?
I was just going to say that he's not on the. No, he's not on there. He froze up while you were talking. He's back.
Well, that will so
He's back.
is he back? I don't see him. Oh, there he is. Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect.
My internet just died.
Yeah, that's okay. Can you set your phone against something and then have it tilt down so we can see your game day? There you go.
Is that better?
That's perfect.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to start off, we're going to kick off with your moment of inspiration.
Oh, yes.
He wants your phone sideways, though. Takes a little more bandwidth. There you go. Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah. Can't see your
And in the
game day,
meantime-
but
In the meantime, I'm going to see if I can get my internet back up and running.
do you have your quote or do you want to wait another segment for quote?
This quote's for you, Kim.
Uh-oh. Shit. I'm in trouble.
No, this is good. You're
No,
good.
never. 1 minute till we air, by the way.
Let me see if I can get this internet back on here. Gosh.
Okay, we're kicking off the segment, though, with you.
Okay.
And it's going to go right to the stinger.
Dr. Phillips, can you adjust your camera so we can see your game day shirt?
Sure. Is that good? I can't really tell. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
How long till we're back? It's weird because I don't hear Colin anymore, so I can't tell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got countdown to 15 seconds till we air. Everybody ready? Let's get it going here today. I'm looking at a 5 now, and then we got to the 4. Let's hit the 3 and the 2 plus the 1, and we're done with this.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Dr. John Phillips, spectacular vascular moment of inspiration.
Okay, so this quote is a couple sentences. It's from Marcus Aurelius, one of the emperors of Rome, who wrote in his meditations kind of his assessment of the human spirit, so to speak. He's considered a philosopher and a Stoic. And I was thinking about you, Kim, because you're constantly on the grind trying to leverage what you do here and balance what you do here for the Heart of Innovation, the show, and just the need to keep the lights on. And so sometimes you get good news about keeping the lights on, and sometimes you get bad news, and it's frustrating. So anyway, just bear with me. Will you bear with me on this one?
I'm going to bear with you.
Okay. So this is from Marcus Aurelius, and I'm reading directly from it. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But now, I cannot feel angry towards these folks because I know the difference between good and evil. And we were all born together like feet, hands, and eyes, like two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. So it's going to be part of the day, right? You get the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yep.
We're all together in this funky little fishbowl called life. So what I want to say is keep fighting the fight. The good people will help you. And I know that we are going to be able to strive forward. So
it was so interesting. That's such a good quote for this week. And I know you were alluding to it in the beginning, and we digressed from the main topic of the day, but we can do whatever we want, right? I think
yes,
it's
we
all
can.
interesting. And we'll get back into the regular topic of the day with game day and such, but you do bring up such a good point, because even with you, I would imagine with having that organization and having invested so much of, money and time and energy into a clinic, and especially a private clinic, there are good days, bad days. I mean, you wonder if it was worth it. Is someone going to show up today? Are the appointments going to be booked? You're here, you're trying to do good things for people, but are people going to receive the help and partake in the help that you're providing, right? And that's the same thing, in my case, with the Global PAD Association. And I know our Pad Warrior champion, Douglas, is here, and one of our amazing Pad Warrior Task Force members, Alan, is here, and they were both participants in a real roller coaster of a day, even yesterday, where there was a situation where a patient posted something that seemed very derogatory and inflammatory and defamatory towards me and the organization with misinformation. And I ended up, because of so much happening, I was trying to save this other patient's life and limb, and then two other patients' limbs, and dealing with a doctor who actually told me by phone, "You're going to love this, Dr. John," actually said to me, and this doctor was in Vero Beach, Florida. I'm so calling that out. I won't say the doctor, but actually said to me that they have so many diabetic patients that while they treat the tibials, they literally will not treat it. They have no time to treat the foot. So every person with a blocked foot artery ends up with amputation, no matter what. Not even a referral to someone who might have time for limb salvage, but they take the time for the referral, the amputation, but not to someone who might be able to save the limb or have the time to open up those arteries. So I just had all this frustration yesterday, then to see this random post in a social media group. So I ended up just saying, literally, what the heck to this patient? And I blocked them. Overreaction. And then I had these other patients that just came at me, just attacked me on there with all of this negative energy. And it was really, really hard on me. It was really demoralizing. I knew that it was a little overreaction, but it was one of those situations where, I'm human. I'm not a robot. I care a lot. Even if I'm a CEO of this organization and maybe I need to have my big girl panties on, I, gotta roll with the punches, they say, but I'm still a volunteer. I still have a heart. And your quote just rings true, because yeah, you do have all these things, but you know what? I can't turn my back on them. No matter what, I'm not that person that would. And so in the moment after I blocked them, I just was like, you know what? Everyone has a story to tell. Let me give them the chance. And I ultimately, did. And I just said, you know what? We're all here on this planet. We all need to be together. And, it's got to take that one person. And if it's got to be me, to stand up and say, you know what? Let that negative energy go. Let's move forward. Let's all just be at peace and be there for one another, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of stuff, a lot to unpack. You're not going to please 100% of people 100% of the time. You're probably not going to please 80% of people 80% of the time. But what I have learned is, and this is not, we've talked about this too, but one of the 7 habits of highly effective people is the notion of what can you control and what freedom do you have in your life. And so whenever there's a stimulus, whether it's a bad review or a post or a patient that's upset with me, there's a response. But the time between the stimulus and the response, I have that freedom. I have that freedom to choose how I'm going to respond.
Yep.
And I have really tried to change how I think about the response. And even with my kids, frankly, take a deep breath, kind of some of the breathing exercises that we had on a couple weeks ago about hand on your heart, slowing things down, taking a breath, because you have that freedom to choose. And so, again, I think it's tough, but we and so even at work, my 9 to 5 job in quotes, and in the clinic after hours, we're always just trying to help people. And I will tell you, and you've seen this too, when you help one person, it really kind of makes it all worth it. Whether it's unblocking a blocked artery or getting somebody's testosterone levels up. I mean, you can change somebody's life, and that's where you make a difference. And I think that's where you drive richness and just a lot of gratitude each day.
I agree. I mean, can't please everyone, but we're going to try, and you're that same, you just want to try. And you probably have that same, frustration when it comes to, the private health clinic, right? And having men's game day, that you have these resources that are available to patients to help prevent things. And you probably do sit there, and your team probably sits there sometimes and goes, oh my goodness, we could really help you. You just take the time. Let's start now. We're going to give you the resources you need. We're going to give you the information you need to start making those critical changes now, so you don't end up on my table. And not everyone's going to listen. Not everyone's going to partake in that. And I would imagine that must be a little frustrating for you as well, because you're offering the toolbox, right? And not everyone's going to open it.
Yep, you're right. But part of the issue is it's a private clinic. People pay out of pocket, so they're using their hard-earned money, and so you want to make sure it's worth their while. And part of what I really want to do in our clinic is strive for this truly concierge type atmosphere where, they have access to me as the medical director and the doctor. They have access to my team, our team, 24/7, and we really try to tailor a fit for you. Well, I mean, one of the things that we treat is weight loss, and everybody is a lot of folks are on the semaglutides, and that's great. But what else can we do for these folks? Like, how do we get them the right diet and an exercise program, and get them to be able to take care of themselves without the medication in the future? That's what I want to do.
Yep, and that's really important. So coming up right here on the Heart of Innovation on KDOW, and also youtube.com/The Way to My Heart. Like and subscribe. Follow us for more every single week. Great content all week long. But stay with us right now. We'll have more with Dr. John Phillips and Game Day in just a moment. Don't go away.
Everyone's clear.
I don't know what Goose Fraba means.
Why can't my internet work right now?
No.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, sorry, I went off on my little, but man, I got derailed after such great news from this whole thing. And then immediately I got literally berated by 2 patients in our group. I mean, berated. Not even giving me the benefit of the doubt. And it was just, I just really, you give to people and give to people and give to people, and you make one little mistake and not even, but they don't want to see your point of view and or anything, that maybe there was something to it. And they just completely come out with guns a-blazing. And it was like, wow, I don't deserve this, and I shouldn't give it the time. But by the same token, as Douglas told me late last night at 11 o'clock at night, Kim, always make that phone call. Always stop for a second and make that phone call to someone to just work it out and create a less reactive and more logical response to the situation versus
Right.
adding fuel to the fire. So I thought that was interesting that you kind of, because that was a really good quote. But we'll get back into
Heads up, everyone. 30 seconds till we air.
The whole game day thing here.
Got it here. Now I have a shirt on.
Yep.
And at least my internet's working, hopefully.
All right, we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we're putting our co-host, Dr. John Phillips, on the spot because I'm fascinated with his decision recently to go from being kind of on the defensive side of the field to more on the offensive, meaning that instead of just waiting for patients to come to him to treat for vascular and cardiovascular diseases and opening up those vessels, he's now gone on the preventative side of the field to help people not go see them in the later stages of life. As much as he loves them and is willing to do so, he wants to prevent them from getting there. And so he invested in a franchise of a men's health chain called Game Day. And their leading treatment is in testosterone. And there is evidence to show that there is some sort of correlation between low testosterone levels and cardiac risk. Although, from what I saw, there was no direct correlation necessarily. But we do find a lot, Dr. John, a lot of men who have cardiovascular and vascular issues do have low testosterone. And it can truly make a difference in their lives if they can improve those levels, even without having a negative impact on their heart, which was what was previously thought. So you've gotten involved in this. You've learned a lot, not only with testosterone, but also so many other, factors and services like, losing weight, diet, exercise, all of that. You're taking a real holistic approach to working with men to not only prevent later issues, but also manage those issues and live a better quality of life. And so it's really interesting that you've made this decision to do this. And before we get into a few more services and a couple questions, I'm curious what sort of reaction maybe your colleagues from the different hospital systems have had with you taking this approach and making this investment of your time and energy.
Well, I mean, for the most part, I think people were receptive and complimentary. Again, low T had a little bit, at least in my experience, had a little bit of maybe a bad taste in people's mouth, just because sometimes it's associated with using synthetic testosterone to build muscle mass and the anabolic steroid thing and whatnot. But for me, it's looking at a hormone that really is kind of the way I kind of describe it is it's like the men's thermostat, or kind of your regulator. And if that value is really low, you can be very, very symptomatic from it, and it can really affect your life, not only from a sexual wellness standpoint, but also just kind of day-to-day brain fog. And my partner, Shemi Schembeckler, he'll tell everybody he's on it. Like, he had a lot of brain fog, and now that he's on it, he feels much better. The low testosterone is associated. There's not as far as I know, a direct link to cardiovascular disease, but it's associated with other chronic medical illnesses like high cholesterol and diabetes, and high blood pressure. So if you can kind of help reduce and get folks in line with better blood pressure control, better blood glucose control, better cholesterol control, through just, seeing your primary care doctor, that's fantastic. But then if their testosterone is very low, raising that in a safe manner, I think you can help reduce their risk for a multitude of other problems. And about a year ago, the New England Journal of Medicine published a paper looking at the use of testosterone replacement in gentlemen that had increased cardiovascular risk, because the cardiovascular risk was relatively unknown with testosterone replacement, and there was a lot of conflicting data and just small sample sizes and things. And I think this paper and this trial really kind of shone the light, or showed that, hey, you can safely replete gentlemen's testosterone, and it's not going to cause increased cardiovascular risk for them. And there may be some benefit to it as well.
It's interesting because, with that and with the cardiovascular disease, so many, of our patients have had a lot of trouble, sexually, and they're in relationships, and it's really an issue. And we've seen a lot of other clinics that have popped up, and we hear it on the TV, we hear it on the radio all the time, with, I think it's ultrasound or some sort of, is it audio waves or something that it claims to, get rid of the plaque. But once you have that plaque into those vessels, into those smaller vessels, that can't necessarily, be removed or broken up artificially like that, that I'm aware of. I don't know if you've seen scientific evidence. Is that something that you guys do as well?
So yes, we have a device that kind of globally is called EPAT, so extracorporeal, that's outside the body, pulse activation therapy. You can use it to help in conjunction with other treatments to potentially improve blood flow and create micro vessels within the penis to help allow for improved blood flow and help with erectile dysfunction. There's also a lot of other treatments that you can provide for erectile dysfunction. We also use that
collateral vessels like you can in the legs and the heart.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's not a mountain of evidence that supports it. Anecdotally, people who get the treatment, it's called Gainswave, and that's trademarked by a company, have shown improved scoring. There's a score that you can use to rate how bad the erectile dysfunction is, and the scores do get better. So a lot of anecdotal stuff. Some people are really into it. Other folks aren't. It's a treatment that we offer, again, in conjunction with platelet-rich plasma injections as well. That has been shown to be beneficial clinically. That does have a lot, I think, more clinical evidence. But a lot of it's anecdotal, but it seems to work.
That's interesting, and that's probably very helpful. It's nice for you to be able to offer that to your advanced stage patients that they don't have any other option, and
yeah, I mean,
give them something to try.
Yeah, I got to thinking about helping folks with erectile dysfunction is because we see that in our patients that have coronary artery disease and peripheral arterial disease, and it's not a fun subject to talk about, and oftentimes the patient will mention it to me as I'm walking out of the room. And I mean, that's like open up, Pandora's box there. And then it's a conversation. And I typically, in my day-to-day practice, I don't prescribe, the Cialis, the Viagras. And I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. And the whole beautiful concept about game day is it's like a man cave environment. And so we have big screen TVs, we have Sports Center on, we have drinks with water and cookies and all sorts of stuff. And we want guys to be comfortable going in there, and regardless if they get treatment, because their initial consultation is free and their lab work is free, the testosterone and PSA. That's another thing I didn't mention. We give a free PSA check, and so every man over 45 needs to know what his PSA is to assess their risk of prostate cancer. So that's a free evaluation, and even if you leave our clinic without anything, we want you to have a smile on your face and just feel comfortable. But ED, erectile dysfunction, is not a fun conversation to have, but when you talk to guys that have severe erectile dysfunction, it ruins their life. It really does.
We'll come out right here on the Heart of Innovation. We'll have more of this hard conversation, so don't go away.
Everyone's clear.
There's no pun intended.
Hey, Dr. John, can you fix your camera angle again? We lost your t-shirt game day part.
Sorry, we got you. How's that?
And Douglas, what is your question? Just so I know, we have literally 4 minutes left, but then I don't know if Dr. John can stay around for about 10 more minutes and continue the conversation because we're still live online. And so there might be more in terms of just some information. I know that you're doing those timeout series and it's really interesting. You're talking about peptides and things like that. And
yeah, I've got to give a shout out to my team too. So definitely.
Douglas, is your question right about on topic, or are we going to get into the weeds? Should we wait till the after show, or do you want to do it now?
All right, everyone. 5 seconds till we air. We're going to be live in 3,
Now or later.
2, 1, and 0.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Putting Dr. John Phillips on the spot because I was fascinated in learning recently that he's gone from the defensive and treating, I guess that's offensive and opening up arteries, but I'm going to, in this case, say it's on the defensive, kind of catching people on the tail end of their cardiovascular and vascular diseases and just trying to give them a better quality of life by opening up the vessels that have been blocked by plaque buildup and, so many issues that happen over time from, high blood sugar to high cholesterol to lack of exercise, all of the above. He wants to get ahead of it. So he wants to get on the offensive and prevent future generations from actually getting the disease itself. And one of the ways in which he is doing that is really helping men in particular to kind of get ahead of this steep decline in testosterone that does happen. It starts happening in their 30s and their 40s and can literally lead to a cascade of issues, right, Dr. Phillips?
Indeed. And before because I know we're coming up on the end of the show, I have to give kudos to my team. I do very little when it comes to day-to-day work, actually zero. My wife, Carolyn, basically runs the clinic day-to-day stuff. She's been fantastic, bitten off more than she could chew, and has been really supportive and awesome. Our partners, the Schembeckler family, has been fantastic, Shemi and Megan, and then we have Patty and Vicky, as well as Matt, who kind of help work. They all work in the clinic. We all pull the rope in the same direction. Again, trying to get guys to be the best version of themselves. We use the term "get back in the game," and we want you to be the best version of yourself, maybe when you were in your 20s or 30s. And Father Time gets us all, but there's no reason why you can't. And if you're listening there sitting on the couch, why you can't get up off the couch and go exercise, go see your primary care doctor, reduce your risk of developing cardiovascular disease and peripheral arterial disease. Know your numbers, not only your lipids and everything else, but know your testosterone, your PSA if you're of that age, and just live a healthy, happier, longer life. So we talk, a life that's full of meaning, but a life that is also productive. So that's what I want to do. That's what we want to do at our Grandview Heights clinic.
But I just love that you as a doctor, you're taking a more holistic approach, to overall medicine. You're not just resting on your laurels and what you learned in medical school and saying, hey, this is just by the textbook. What I'm exploring other ways in which I can empower individuals to take their health into their own hands in a more natural way. And not only with the testosterone and improving those levels, but also in improving nutrient deficiencies. We have one of your patients, Deidre Arms, who has a series now on our network, thanks to your introduction to us. And it's all about how do we diagnose nutrient deficiencies, which can lead to chronic illnesses, lead to so many symptoms, and prevent future ones and treat them. And that's something that you're focused on as well through your organization.
Yeah, no, we offer vitamin supplementation. Again, there's no magic pill for this. You have to eat well and exercise, but we have some vitamins that help people lose weight. We have vitamins that help reduce oxidative stress. We have peptides that I think that work and give gentlemen and women increased energy and help build muscle mass. So there's a lot of stuff out there, but so for example, with the semaglutides and weight loss, you can take the medicine. We want to help you with that, but we also want you to, I don't want my patients on that stuff the rest of their lives. Maybe if they need a little bit, once every other week or so. But again, you got to get the right habits, and we don't want to outsource discipline, as Joe Rogan says.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I really appreciate you allowing us to.
Can I give a shout out to my Timeout Tuesdays on TikTok?
I was just going to actually say that you jumped ahead of me. How can patients find out more, follow you, and get some of this information? And big thank you to your daughter for doing those Timeout Tuesdays.
Yep, she does a Timeout Game Day Men's Health Grandview Heights, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to learn more and follow us and join the club, you need to go to menwithpad.com.
Menwithpad.com.
You've been listening to The Heart of
Okay, we are all clear. So we want to open it up for a grander discussion just for a few minutes. I know Douglas has a question. We are still live on youtube.com/The Way to My Heart. I want to allow some of you to jump in. And ladies, you can even jump in as well, because Dr. John, your clinic, it might have been designed for men, but you have some offerings to support women to prevent and stall progression of disease as well. What are those offerings?
So low testosterone historically has been for men and men treated with it, but there's literature, and I know women who worry about their testosterone levels, because we all need some, men more than women, but there are some women that I know that are on low T or are being treated for low testosterone. The Game Day franchise ORs are actually going to be starting a women's clinic called Her Way to kind of focus on women. But until then, we have the vitamin supplements, the peptides, weight loss, as well as the radio wave therapy for musculoskeletal soft tissue injuries. So it's treating again, at the end of the day, there's no magic pill here, but we just want people to be the best version of themselves and empower themselves. Same thing with what you do, Kim, to try to raise awareness for PAD and amputation prevention.
Yeah, definitely. And I know Douglas has a question. He's been wanting to get in. He's always so patient. So he says you answered it, though. Is there any other comments that you wanted to make, Douglas, or before we move on? I know we have a question. Actually, my dad is here, and my dad wanted to ask you a couple of questions. He had the same issue when it came to testosterone, but he's been working with a health coach, and this health coach has all of these things that are going to cost him thousands of dollars to improve his health, all these natural means. But one of the issues he thought he could ask you about was in regards to nutrients, IV nutrients.
What was it? IV, you said?
IV, intravenous.
Yeah. So there is this notion of IV therapy. So I'll take a step back with respect to the vitamin supplements that we offer, or anybody offers. You really need to take them at least once a week and for a extended period of time. So the last Timeout Tuesday that I did, I focused on what's called MIC and B12. So this is a combination of 3 nutrients. So there's an amino acid, there's another component that's actually an alcohol sugar, and then the other one is choline, which is a nutrient. And these nutrients are found in your foods, peanuts and beans and things of that nature, fish, liver, all sorts of stuff. But what you can get is a highly purified version of it. And the combination of the three of them plus B12 has been shown to help people lose weight in conjunction with exercise and a good diet. But it's one of these things where you have to take it on a regular basis. So like I would extrapolate IV hydration to probably something similar to that, where you get it, but how long is it going to last for? So like for me personally, I started taking the MIC and B12, and I'm going to do it for 3 months and kind of see how I feel. Same thing with one of the peptides I started taking. I had my first dose last night, the Somorelin, which is kind of a natural human growth hormone. And that has been shown to kind of help with energy levels and increase muscle mass and may raise your testosterone a little bit. I feel it's really important for me to, and try is not the right term, but be well versed in these supplements that we're offering. So I'm going to try every single one of them, to be honest with you. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, he just said go to IVs, and I mean, what do you select for a place to go to?
I mean, there's, I think, something that maybe Hydrate Me, I think, is maybe a national brand. They, as far as I know, a lot of them are for like kids that go on a binge drinking, and they're hungover, and they go the next morning and they get an IV treatment. You can throw, like, so for example, when someone who is an alcoholic comes into the hospital and he's nutrient deplete, or we can give them hydration and put nutrients in that bag called a banana bag, honestly, and it kind of helps replete the nutrients. But you're not going to get an IV treatment every week. Maybe you are, I don't know. But again, that's the thing. You can put this stuff in an IV and get the therapy. I think it might sound a little sexier than it actually is, in my opinion.
But a lot of the, like you were mentioning, the B12 and some of the
Mhm.
other ones, is it something in the peptides even? Is this something that you have to plan? You can't just do a one-off, right?
No,
And say,
right.
oh, okay, it didn't work. So it's something probably that builds up over time, that you probably would need a course of these types of nutrients for 3 months in order to truly get the maximum impact.
Right. So it's like you cycle. So for example, the MIC for weight loss, we recommend at least 3 months of it. So that's a weekly injection, and see how you do. And if it's helping you, great, but you have to give the body a little bit of a break, and then you can reuse it. Not a lot of them are chronic, like the Somorelin, that's a peptide. You can use that chronically, but that's either an injection every day or a sublingual under the tongue tablet every day. So you have to take this stuff on a regular, it's like your daily vitamin. You have to take it or get the nutrients somehow from it. And for the most part, they're not gonna hurt you. But in California, for example, the peptides, if you look them up, they're very heavily regulated, and there's some dispute as to why, but you can't get a lot of the peptides that people ask for in California. We can get them in Ohio, but they're highly regulated because people worry about adverse reactions and things like that to them. So you have to understand what you're getting into.
And that's what he was wondering, especially, when you're on different blood thinners and blood pressure
Mhm.
drugs, and even antacids along with that. It's really challenging to know, well, how much is too much, and um, when do you need more, and which ones to
Yeah.
even choose.
Yeah, I recommend. I mean, we have like vitamin C and vitamin D. I don't recommend using those because I wouldn't say it's a waste of money, but you can usually get that stuff from a good pill at Amazon or CVS or whatever. But some of the ones we offer, you can only get through injection because the gut destroys it when you ingest it, and so that's what I really am a proponent of. The getting back to testosterone, there was some concern, like folks over 65, should they be, because their testosterone's even lower, right? It drops 2% every year after age 30, I think. And so was there a concern about them? And in the trial that I mentioned from the New England Journal, even in that age group, there was not an increased cardiovascular risk. In fact, I think there was a trend towards maybe some cardioprotective nature as well.
Yeah, because I had the testosterone also, which my dropped to 35. and now I'm in the 450, 550 range, and I take the gel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that in most guys that I've talked to who start it, like they swear by it and they're not going to get off it. You have to be careful though, because the testosterone breaks down. I mean, so the active byproducts of it is something called DHT and then estradiol, which translates into estrogen. So you can get too much estrogen on testosterone. So you have to watch that, because guys can lose their hair. They can start getting gynecomastia, so breasts. No one wants that really, and so we have to mitigate that transition. Yeah, no, it's a real phenomenon. So there's a medication that you can block that transition. You need some degree of estrogen, but you don't want an overload. So that is a concern. But when you're 35, that's low, and most people feel like garbage that low, and you get their numbers up to 400, 500, 600. Ideally, they want around 800, 900, but people, again, they swear by this stuff, and they've made me a believer. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And what is your treatment like for testosterone versus, let's say, clinically through his VA? He
Well,
has
right.
the gel.
And so I'm not, the gel works okay for some folks. It's messy. You got to be careful if you're around, if your partner is trying to, if you're trying to get pregnant, or if there's things of that nature. That does remind me too, we see young guys who have low testosterone who don't want to get on the injectable testosterone, which is that's typically what we use. They don't want to get on it because it can suppress sperm count. And so there's other pills that you can take that kind of naturally raise your testosterone to a level where, and it's called Clomid or enclomiphene, and that can raise it as well. So there's other options. But for us, to answer your question, Kim, the vast majority of our gentlemen take injection. So it's a once a week injection. The best way to kind of prevent the highs and the lows is to do it twice a week, but a lot of guys don't really like doing that. So it's once a week. There's also, you can get pellets inserted, and then it goes kind of right above the hip by the buttock region. And those will kind of dissolve over time. Some guys like those, but you can have some complications with those as well. So for the vast majority, they're getting injections.
Yeah, well, the gel works, and the reason why the VA is sort of against injections, at least for me, is those that have been experienced in having PTSD.
No, gotcha.
The PTSD is why.
Understood. Yeah, that's a good point. Understood. Yeah.
And Alan has a question. Alan, go ahead and unmute and ask your question of Dr. John. Today we're talking about Game Day, which is a men's clinic that he has invested in, and he's on the offensive versus he's trying to prevent people from getting vascular and cardiovascular diseases, through his efforts. So go ahead, Alan, ask your question of Dr. John.
Hey, Doc, got a question, a quick one.
Yes, sir.
I thought about the testosterone treatment, and I was questioning because I was just always run down. I have PAD, I have CAD, diabetic, and I just had a heart intervention 2 weeks ago, and everything turned out great. I feel better, but isn't there a slight danger for somebody that's just had an intervention to start testosterone therapy?
To my knowledge, no. What the data suggests, at least in that clinical trial, the only signal for an increased vascular complication was a slight increase in pulmonary embolism in gentlemen who were on the testosterone replacement. So pulmonary embolism is typically a clot in the leg breaks off, and it gets lodged in the lung arteries and can cause shortness of breath, and in severe cases, worse, death. But so there was a little increase there. Interestingly enough, though, there wasn't an increase in the what we call DVT or clots in the legs. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know of any data that says after, I'm assuming you had a stent or something.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I don't know that, other than the fact that if you were not on, in addition to aspirin, another medicine that kind of works with the platelets. The biggest issue with testosterone is increasing red blood cell production. And so we have to check patients' hemoglobin and hematocrit. And sometimes guys, their hemoglobin and hematocrit will rise to a point where the blood is, for lack of a better analogy, too thick. And we just have to take some off. And so they'll need what's called the therapeutic phlebotomy, where you end up draining off 400 cc's of blood, and you can donate it to the Red Cross or something. So that is, I think, the theoretical risk that people talk about.
Thanks, Doc.
You bet.
How about Marcia? Marcia, go ahead and ask your question of Dr. John.
Good afternoon, Dr. John.
Hello, Marcia. How are you?
I'm good today.
You've seen the Brady Bunch, right?
Oh yeah, it's always Marcia.
Marcia.
Yeah. I'm curious. I find this whole discussion rather fascinating, but I'm not a man.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, have you seen any studies or correlation in women and their levels of estrogen? And like if they've had hysterectomies or if they're on therapy?
So my disclaimer is I'm not a hormone specialist, not an endocrinologist. I can just anecdotally tell you that I know some women who take gel testosterone replacement for low testosterone, and that has significantly improved their libido. One of the biggest drivers to suppress libido is lack of estrogen. And one woman told me that it frankly saved her marriage. So there is a push for hormone replacement, not only testosterone, but also estrogen. That, I think, is a little bit more tricky with respect to estrogen replacement. There is an increased risk of blood clots with estrogen. But I think we're just becoming a little bit more aware of some of these hormone deficiencies as people age. I mean, my analogy for loss of hormones is simple, and maybe it's too simple, and that's the way I think about it. But when you're a man, typically after 40, you've kind of done what you need to do from a teleological standpoint and evolutionary standpoint to continue your species. You've reproduced, and so you need the testosterone for sperm production and things like that. Well, you've done your duty, and nature doesn't care about you really anymore. But we're living longer, and people want functional lives, and it's the same thing, I think, with estrogen and low T in women too. So I don't know. There's some women that they go to their OB or their PCP and they won't test or check their testosterone levels or their estrogen. And so I think they're reaching out for other places. I will tell you though, that in guys, the range of testosterone is so wide that oftentimes they'll go to their PCP and get their levels checked. And it can be anywhere from like 300 to 1,000. That's a huge range. And any of you that have looked at your labs, you'll look at the column and then they'll give you a normal reference range. And if it's not red, it looks good. Well, your testosterone can be 302 and you'll be in the good column, but you can have a lot of symptoms. Same thing, your testosterone can be 600 and you can have symptoms, or it can be 300 and you don't have symptoms and stuff. So that's, I think, part of the issue too in the PCP or urology world, where they're not maybe checking it or treating it as aggressively as they could be.
And my dad actually has another question in regards, or a couple questions. So I'm going to let him speak.
Hey, John. Yeah, it's my endocrinologist. She does a testing every 3 months, blood test on me to make sure, because of the concern about the platelets and everything like that. But I do have a question back on your, what do you call it, AccuWave or whatever, your version of it.
The radio wave, yeah.
What does that do or whatever? I know out here we have two majors that advertise all the time, and I've been to see one, which says it's 32 sessions and $6,700 later, which you pay up front and it's non-refundable.
So I will say that we bought the device for erectile dysfunction, and the theory behind it is it looks like a gun. And it has a little piston in it, and that piston vibrates back at a really high frequency. and it hits this pin that then transmits that frequency acoustic wave to the soft tissue. And on the penis, it's thought that it can stimulate blood flow. But so this thing is rapidly firing, and it's measured, the pressure is measured in bars. And so 1 bar exerts 1 kilogram of weight over on a 1 centimeter square area. So, if you got a centimeter square, that thing is just pounding, and it causes micro trauma that then in the theory is that it kind of brings more rapid healing. I've actually used it. So full disclosure, we bought this machine, and there aren't a lot of guys that are, hey, let me have this thing beating on, my penis because it hurts. Okay. And so I talked to the person that we bought it from, and he said, actually, most people use this for musculoskeletal injuries. I mean, all the major sports teams have them. One of our patients works with Ohio State athletics, and they have one. And so we started treating people for tennis elbow and golfer's elbow, plantar fasciitis. We've got a gentleman that we're treating with a micro tear of his labrum. It can help with muscle tightness. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. It's like a Theragun on big time, no pun intended, but big time steroids. So ours is much cheaper than that. It's about $100 a session, honestly. And in fact, my son just tweaked his groin in football, and I've got to take him to the clinic tomorrow and do a session for him. But it worked wonders on my tennis elbow, honestly. So I encourage people, go like our clinic. We offer a free one. Just try it and see if it helps. But I wouldn't pay $6,700 for anything. I mean, you can get it. I talked to the guy like in New York City, it's $400 a session, I think. And that's obviously it's probably more expensive in California, but you shouldn't be paying that much, in my opinion. And it typically requires about 4 or 5 sessions to help with.
Both companies, Prime and Westman Medical, male, both say 32 sessions.
That's why it seemed a little extreme to me. And that's why I said, you know what, honestly, to me out here, it seemed like to think that 32 sessions would be more of a money-making scheme. It makes more sense that in your case, you're saying, okay, you don't need more than, half a dozen, sessions to really, get an impact and see if it's even doing anything during that versus having to commit to that many sessions. What you're saying and what you do makes more sense.
What's the time period you do your sessions, John?
So honestly, it takes about, by the time you get the patient checked in and stuff, it's about 15 minutes. The actual session itself takes about 4 minutes because you have to ramp up. You can't just start somebody at the maximum amount of bars or pressure. So you have to kind of let them adjust to it. And it does hurt. I mean, at some point, it almost felt like I was getting a tattoo, like that micro needling. But the gentleman that we helped with his shoulder, and this is God's honest truth, he said, man, after he had it, because it leaves like a pucker. You break the capillaries in the skin, and so it creates a bruise. And he said for the first time he slept on his left shoulder in a really long time. It's not a cure, but it can help. And that's the thing. Let's look with everything. It's not a cure, but it can help. And so you wait a week, and I mean, most of the patients finish up in 4 sessions.
So about 4-week time period.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think there's got to be a game day in San Francisco. There has to be.
I just think I'll take a look. There probably is one around here somewhere, but
tell them I sent you.
What'd you say?
I said, tell them I sent you.
Okay.
I'm a crazy guy from Columbus, Ohio.
Plus on this whole thing, or we just have to go stay in Columbus, Ohio for 4 weeks, or down in Carlsbad, California. Not too bad. My brother lives down in that area.
Stay down there.
Yeah, you can stay down there.
Brave Resort.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carlsbad is a nice area. 100%.
Not too bad. Well, we really appreciate your time, Dr. Phillips.
As always, love it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. I'll put my professional background back up. There we go. Now we're all official, so I just want to make sure if anyone else has any questions for Dr. John about these nutrient therapies, testosterone therapies, just go ahead and unmute, or else, again, we started a new website, and it is menwithpad.com. It's a Facebook group. I'm sure that our YouTube producer here, Joshua, is going to want us to do a Microsoft Teams group for it as well. So for those who can download Microsoft Teams, so hopefully stay tuned for that, and we'll have more information. But I think it's a great place for men to come together, and it's going to be a good partnership between your organization and the Global PAD Association to help allow a safe space for men to have the tough conversations and ask the questions that they want and have those discussions.
Love it. And I'm actually gonna once you do all your fantastic editing, I'll have to share this video with our the marketing team at large at game day and see if we can not only get them to help, but maybe do a little sponsorship. So that would be kind of fun. We'll see.
That would be amazing as well. Well, I hope everyone has a good...
Now, Kimberly, are you free tomorrow to chat? Tomorrow? What's your schedule like tomorrow?
Time, yes.
What time?
Hold on one second. We'll let Joshua clear us from YouTube, and then we'll continue this conversation in just a moment.